Okay, I think I'll get everybody ready to get welcome everybody to Community Resources and Tourism Committee meeting. I will now call the meeting to order at 4:30. Um, Roll call, I think we're only missing one. Um, Stires, I haven't heard from them. I think nobody else has either, so mostly those up online. Nope. Approval of the minutes, and one thing I want to say before that, that's not May, it's June. That is wrong, so it's just a correction that was made, so we're correcting the June meetings, not the May meetings, so. I will accept a motion to accept.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Go. Any public comments? I have received none. None from you either? Okay. Okay, now item 5, we'll move on to area extension staff meetings. We'll hear from Kristen and area extension director.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. So a couple weeks ago, I think Deanna and I sent out this Dunn County Extension Programs and Investment Overview document, just asking you to look it over if you had anything else you wanted me to add. So at the last committee meeting, there was some question around what was the investment by program area. And so, this document shows what that investment looks like, both on the county side and the UW side, in terms of salary fringe, or what the pay structure looks like for each of the positions. So I also included an operations investment, so what the county and state both contribute at an operations level. And then, of course, the community impact by program areas as well, just to give you an idea again about the program areas and what that entails. So happy to go through this document with you, or if you have questions. I know this is a larger component of the, what was that, directional planning that you're doing as the board. This, I hope, gives you some idea in terms of what this investment does, what it looks like, and the co-funded model in terms of the advantages that brings to the county through funding structures. So, any questions?
Nobody's got any questions? You got any more?
No, not unless you have questions about it, or additional questions. I know there was some conversation at the last meeting regarding extension and some of the program areas. So happy to take those questions. I apologize for being gone last month.
Supervisor Monica.
Yeah, I think I know the answer to this, but the county investment across the different program areas is different. I'm guessing the reason for that is that the ones that are lower, like 16,000, those are shared across many counties. Is that
Correct.
just it? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. So your horticulture, livestock, crops and soils, community development, those are all shared with the other two counties in the area. So Chippewa, Dunn, and Eau Claire all share those.
Okay.
If you have questions specific to those program areas and some of the outcomes that they have, all the educators are here at this meeting today. So so please, if you do have question on value, on some of the things that they do that you need in order to communicate that to the rest of the board, they are here tonight to either online or in person to answer any of those questions.
I guess while I'm asking, so what's the reason for the different UW-Madison investment among those four?
So what I wanted to showcase is, because it's a co-funded model, I wanted to showcase what the co-funded model looks like in terms of the county investment versus the versus Madison investment. So that shows for each of those program areas what the county invests, so the actual dollar amount that's on the contract, and then the difference from that contractual piece to what the actual cost is. So when you add those two numbers up, that's the actual cost for that position in this county.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, why is Madison investing, $18,000 in horticulture, but 32,000 in crops and soils? Why is that different?
Because it's based on salary and fringe. That is actual costs of the educator. So it depends on the actual educator.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Mhm. Or the personnel.
Anyone else got any questions? I think you're off the hook. You wanna,
I have more.
go after.
I got enamored by the screens over here. Yes, I have an announcement actually that I'd like to make, and then just talking a little bit about next steps. Garrett Zastapil has accepted another position outside of Extension. So he'll be leaving Extension. His last day will be next Friday. I think Garrett's online. Yeah. So I invite Garrett, if you'd like to say a few words about that. I'd invite you if you wish.
Thanks, Kristen, putting me on the spot.
Yeah, you're welcome. One last time, Garrett.
Thank you to the committee for all of the support in this role and really helping scope out what some of the needs are, and the opportunity to connect with committee members and through the committee, various community members. So thanks to you all, and please don't ever be a stranger.
So I just want to thank Garrett for his service to Dunn County and the area. Garrett's done a lot of impactful work around especially childcare here in Dunn County, as well as some of the operational plans, as well as working with some of the departments with strategic planning, leadership development, those kinds of things. And so we're really going to feel his loss. So we're sad to see him go, but very excited for his next steps. So as we look at that transition, I have reached out to the Community Development Institute. I'll be talking to, I did talk with the Chippewa County Administrator today. This is a shared position across 3 counties, so it's a little bit trickier in terms of what that might look like moving forward. We do have, the Institute has given their support in terms of if there's things that come up in the county, they will respond and help as much as they can through this transition. I'll be working closely with all 3 county leaders in terms of what does this position look like moving forward. I don't know if any of you were, I think a few of you were on the board when we are on the committee when we switched this position 2.5 years ago from food systems to community development, and that was based on feedback from all 3 counties. And so I want to take a step and see, hey, where are we at now? We've got new members on, we've got different perspectives. And we have 3 new leaders, county leaders. So really going to take a step back and make sure that the position is scoped the way that the counties would like to see it scoped, what the scope of work will look like. And we're gaining some knowledge from Garrett, him moving into that position. What does that look like? What are some pros and cons? I know he was stretched across 3 counties, so really going to take a close look at scoping that so that we have an understanding of what the position might look like moving forward. So I'll keep you updated. Bob probably will be, as the chair, more engaged and involved in that process, but certainly we'll keep the committee up to date as we move forward, as we scope that. And once the hiring process comes, if you all engage in that, I'll be asking committee members from all 3 counties to also engage in that process. So that's what that'll look like moving forward. And that's all I have. Oh, yes, thank you. Deanna's like, yes, so thanks, Deanna. So at the July 29th committee meeting or county board meeting, we're going to host an open house, and we've talked to Bob about this a little bit, but we're going to host an open house. And basically what we'd like to do is this is part of the strategy that we've had this year of trying to really engage the board, let the board know who we are, what we do. So the videos that you see, one will be released, and that's the other thing I want to I should write this stuff down. And so you'll see those videos. This is another way that we want to engage with the board by having our educators present and before the board meeting and have conversations with county board members. And so that's on July 29th. We wanted to give you all a heads up so that you weren't surprised when you came in on the 29th. With that open house. So we're doing it from 6 to 7. And prior to, we're going to have snacks and stuff because food always it's always a hit. So any questions or thoughts on that?
Well, I'm just hoping to get a good turnout from the county board to actually take a look and see what you do and all the things that get done,
Yeah.
and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
Hopefully
we're hopeful to do that. Yeah. It'll be in here. Yeah.
In room 60. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be nearby. So that'll be helpful. And then finally, I did not release the video for this month to the entire board. I wanted to show it to the committee first. It is about the budget process, and so I think it's timely. And so I'd like to, if Deanna would, it's about a minute and a half, would just like to showcase that video and see if there's any questions as we work through the budget process. It looks, are you? It's not playing right now. Right at the bottom, it looks like you're muted.
Jenna, do you have anything?
Yeah, you should.
For tonight, would you guys be okay watching with caption? And then we'll send it out to the whole board. Is that all right?
So this is about what we were talking about earlier. The salary and benefits are co-funded. And this is what extension brings to the table: professional development, research, statewide specialists, and the infrastructure. Where'd the captions go, Deanna? The county. So we can maybe even bring this up next time as well. So I'll be sending this video out. So the reason why I waited was because I wanted to show it to you all first to see if you had questions, and then I was going to share it tomorrow morning. But this is in the series. This one I thought was a really important one because it does show that co-funded model. and the investment that you bring to the table and how that is multiplied across several ways through the UW system, and then also through our volunteer network as well. So we'll talk about it more next month, because I don't think funding is going away in terms of like budgets. So we'll continue this conversation. But that's all. I think that's all I have, Deanna. Is that all I have?
Thank you for that report, Sue. Yeah, we'll catch that next time. It'd be nice, yeah. Or we'll see it on the county.
Yeah.
That's it.
When you watch it, then if you have questions about the funding, I think it's an important conversation, especially for those of you who are newer to, because it is a different funding model, and there is a lot of add-ons in terms of what your investment brings to the table. And so we'll talk more about that next month.
Okay, we'll move on to the monthly highlight. In your packet, you had the reports from the other educators. If anybody had any questions or comments on their reports. I'd also like to say, Garrett, that I've heard your name out there many times, that the job that you've been doing, working with people. So congratulations on your new position.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it.
Any questions for any of the educators? I do want to do a shout out for Louise again for your Distinguished Educator Award. That was this old news, but we haven't had a meeting to do that for you. So yes, congratulations on that. You're going to bring that up, yeah. And if there's nothing left, we'll bring you up here.
I had a question.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Jerry, are you planning on being at the Farm Technology Days? On Thursday? Okay, okay. And that's actually going on, starting today, right? Right, yeah, okay. All right, thank you. I'll look for you there.
Anyone else? Sorry about that.
Am I on? Okay. My name's Luisa Gerasimo. Thank you all for coming tonight. There's a bigger crowd than I was expecting. I don't know, I got on the agenda and you all showed up. Thank you. Seriously though, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I do and why it's important. And so I literally only have 5 slides, so that won't take really very long. And if you are interested in seeing what's on my show and tell cart, I'm going to keep it here because I'll be here through the whole meeting. An array of programs that I'm currently involved in, including some reports and housing education workshops coming up. So Human Development and Relationships is an institute at UW-Madison, and our job is to help educate people and to encourage positive relationships. And that relationships is both the children and the parents, but also the parents. So part of our job is to make sure that people understand how to communicate with each other and can have good relationships that help bond people together as a family. And as all of you probably know, family is sort of the basic unit, right? All of the work that we do here in the county, when it comes down to it, it's people who live together and form some kind of unit which helps them in the world. So human development and relationships is an interesting one because more and more we're seeing jobs switch to AI. And I think some of my job actually probably could be done by AI. If you're looking for a simple question and you ask a simple question, you get a simple answer, but your answer might not be right. As we all know, AI is a little dicey and it's scraped information from all over the place. So what's different about what myself and my colleagues do is that our information is based on solid research from the universities across the nation and even internationally. I have had the good fortune to be invited to trainings, including one from somebody who is overseas and is like, you know, the top mind in her subject area. And we were learning about what happens to families when parents are incarcerated. And it was so fabulous to get a chance to go and hear somebody who's really dug in deep on what happens to families, because what happens is really tough. And we have quite a lot of families in Dunn County who have somebody in jail, and so it really impacts what's going on at their home financially, emotionally, their ability to keep moving on as a family unit. So we have, as was shown very briefly in Kristen's thing that didn't exactly go, and you'll get to see that, the opportunity to have an educator based in research at the university is pretty cool. But I want you to know I'm from Dunn County. I've been here since I was a little teeny kid, and we have a farm. I went through the dairy crisis of the 80s. We're now a beef farm. We have multiple people on our farm, multiple generations still farming the farm. So I went to Menominee High School, went away for college, came back. I've been married 38 years as of a couple weeks ago. I have 2 adult children. They're both living at the same farm. And my daughter today drove the tractor for the first time. We have some newer tractors, and my husband has not exactly shared those. So today, haymaking, those of you who are farmers know you got to make hay while the sun shines. So I have the opportunity to serve my neighbors and to get in contact with people who I understand. I understand the basic needs in Dunn County, and constantly educating myself as to what is changing. So housing and childcare are 2 areas that come up a lot that are really hitting families very hard. Could I have the next slide? So this is a little bit of what our local family engagement strategies look like. So parenting classes, you would expect as a family educator, there's some parenting classes. How many of you had a parenting class when you were a parent? Some of you are maybe still have kids at home. Kristen, you took classes. You also taught those classes, so that's not really fair. Just ignore Kristen's answer. Most of us don't get that opportunity to take a class when we're about to have children or we have children. If you think about what we invest as a society in driver's ed or getting somebody to drive a car, it's a really big deal. And why do we put all that energy and money and time into children driving cars who are 15 years old? Why do you think that is? What's that, Andrew? Well, you look like you answered, so speak up. Safety, for the protection of everyone. Well, think about parenting. Don't you think that it would be smart for us to do a little bit of investment in education so that people get a good start at home? We know that if you get a good start at home, you're going to be able to make friendship, you'll understand and have kindness and compassion towards other little kids. And when you get to school, man, your teachers are going to be really happy to see you if you've had a good start. When you have a rough start, that means society needs to pour a lot more energy in trying to help that child up to that first level, whether it's pre-K or kindergarten, right? So the investment early on really, really makes sense. I mean, I wish we could see more people earlier. And recently I got asked to join the Community Advisory Board for the Nurse Family Partnership for the region. And that's the group that really goes out and helps people in their homes be safer and help their children hit those milestones that we really care about as a society. So the parenting classes, I have a bunch of them on the cart. I won't go into a whole lot of details, but under the parenting classes, I also included couples coaching. I'm a trained facilitator for something called Strong Couples. It's a free program where people take online classes and then they meet with me by Zoom as a coach. I'm not a therapist. I do not pretend to be one. I don't play one on TV or anything. But I help them make sure that they understand what they've learned in their online session. And I just started that program. I think I've had maybe 6 couples, and it's really exciting. I had a couple last week who I didn't think would stick with the program, and they went away on a family vacation, and they came back with a real renewed enthusiasm for working on it. And the gentleman in the family said that it had been a life goal of his. He went back and looked at his journals from when he was in elementary school, a life goal to be married and have a good family. And he said it occurred to him now that he's in his 40s that he hasn't done a very good job of that. He's married, he has a family, but he hasn't invested in it. And so again, like the driver's ed, we also need to invest in how we communicate as couples. So I have invested in that myself to help other people. And that program is free, and it's an easy program. It doesn't take a whole lot of my time. The coaching sessions are only 20 minutes long. So that's something that I thought would be helpful for our neighbors, and I want people to get along with each other because they'll be better parents that way, right? Training for Dunn County departments, this is where the local part comes in. So over the years, I've helped a bunch of the departments in this building and over in judicial with professional development needs. I have found with budgets being cut that most of them can't afford the Real Colors program, which I'm also a certified facilitator. I have a shorter program called Question Thinking that I got trained in during COVID, and they're taking that one because it's free and it's only an hour. It's good and I like it, but I wish I could offer real colors more often. But that has been taken advantage of by many of our departments here. And people also tap me for help with things like analyzing soft data, social science data, focus groups, things like that. So I interact with many of the departments, and many of the people in the departments have joined the housing action team, for instance, because housing has hit everybody so hard. It's so hard to find a place to live. So Greg in Veteran Services, and Tracy in ADRC, and Paula Winter in Human Services, and KT in the Health Department. These are people I work with on a regular basis. So I'm very enmeshed here, despite being connected to Madison and getting lots of great training and knowing where the research is. I actually can bring that right here to this building. And that's the magic of extension that I think most of us are excited about, but sometimes we forget to tell that story. Collaboration with the community, like I said, I'm working all the time on things. I don't know if you guys have noticed, and it was not very well publicized, and I should probably go out, take some pictures and put it in the papers, but we now have free book bins for children in every laundromat in Dunn County. Why? Because I saw a need and I just decided to do something about it. I put an exploratory one upstairs when they remodeled the family waiting area right by Human Services and Vet Services and ADRC. And I asked Paula, like, could I put a book bin out? And she's like, that's probably a really good idea. And so she told me who was involved. It was a grant to do like little play area, put a book bin down there. And the tricky part, the sneaky part, I'm basically using it as an avenue to get parenting information into people's hands. I do want people to read to their children. And I want every child who wants a book to have a book. But I stick these family relationships matter and parenting future readers bookmarks in there, and that takes you right to our website. Madison, my program area, we have done a fantastic job. We have very easy to use website where you can go right into tiles based on your child's age to get the resources you need, or pick up a class. The classes are almost entirely free. Sometimes there's a charge for the materials, but this is to get that out. And when it started working really well just in this building, which we don't have a ton of families sitting down there, but I was going through, first it was 5 books a week, and then it was 10 books, and then it was 15, and I'm like, oh, this could actually work. And I thought laundromats. I had a colleague who did this in Eau Claire and had a lot of success with that. So I'm going to admit something to you, even though this is public. I tried really hard to get permission from all the laundromat owners, but if you've ever lost money in a vending machine, super hard to figure out who to contact. Most of them didn't have phone numbers, and I did a lot of research. I left a lot of voicemails, and I never heard back. And finally, somebody saw this in our local newspapers, and somebody had sent it to a national foundation for laundromats and books. Who knew there was such a thing? The president called me up after this had run in our local papers, and it was wonderful because what a great resource he is. He used to own a whole chain of laundromats. He understood the whole system. And I said, hey, I'm kind of worried because, like, I don't know if it's okay to put a bin in if I haven't gotten permission. And he's like, well, give me the one that you're having the worst time with, and I'll give him a call. Well, he couldn't get a hold of him either. And he finally said, just put the bin in there. What are you risking? So we have a nice bin in each of the 4 laundromats, Colfax and 3 in Menominee. And we're getting donated books from the public. I got over 1,000 books from a high school group. And so I'm going through, especially board books. Any of you who would like to get rid of some board books my way, those little toddler chubby hand baby books. But I'm going out tomorrow to restock. It'll be my second restock mission. And I actually was shocked when I went out because I was like, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks. Like, I don't want to drive around too much. The books had been gone through. The bins were well emptied. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, what's the cadence on it, but I'm working in cooperation with our public libraries. Sadly, I was also working in Colfax with our Colfax librarian, but that seems to be working. So I'm hoping that that will also cause people to pick up more information about reading to children, interacting with children, and taking classes, and maybe we'll see more numbers from Dunn County. Family education teams, I just mentioned that because I do spend a fair bit of time collaborating with people who do my job across the state. And the reason I'm on so many teams is because then I bring those classes to Dunn County. And even when I'm busy teaching one class, There's series going on everywhere, and my wonderful colleagues across the state are teaching other classes at the same time. So there's a whole list of those up here on my show and tell cart, but we have classes for people who have split up and are sharing children. Those are really, really important co-parenting classes. We have Focus on Fathers, taught one today called Fathers Help Children Make Good Decisions. There were 11 men and 1 woman in our class. It's open to everybody, but a really nice place for dads to like get some support from other dads. A lot of these guys are single dads, and really a valuable thing to be able to offer those specialty courses. I can't offer all of them myself, but there's literally hundreds going on across the state because I'm willing to help. Then my people get to take the classes. Next one, please. All right, so I think I said this already. I'm local. I've got good, deep connections, and I really value the fact that Dunn County is such a wonderful and welcoming place. The people who work here, I mean, you guys are board members, so I'm probably preaching to the choir, but man, our Dunn County professionals, they're really professional. They're really caring. If you've ever seen them handle a crisis, I mean, Andrew, you've probably seen this because of the front door there. Often a crisis seems to be right by our front door of our building. But people are really kind. They're very caring. They know their work, and they're really good at it. And I feel really lucky to get to work with so many of our Dunn County employees. I mentioned that our residents can take all of the classes that we offer statewide for free. That's a pretty big value because if you sign up for like, you know, a tech school course or even a high school night class, you have to pay a fee usually for that. Whereas for us, typically the materials are free. Sometimes we have $20 charge if it's a big thing like a 4-hour class with a big handbook. Another thing I wanted to mention, which is pretty exciting, is we did a study in our area, the Family Engagement and Relationships, 3 years ago, and then got a grant based on that study to help our early childhood educators. So these are our preschool and daycare people who, as you know, make like $12.20 an hour on average. You know the model does not work. Adam, I think it was you that said it's just plain broken, or somebody in one of those meetings said the model is broken. So parents are paying more than they can afford. Daycare centers are having a hard time surviving. We expect that we'll be losing 30% of Wisconsin daycares in the coming year because that bridge funding is gone as of June 30th. So everybody is trying to figure things out. And one of the things we found out where we feel like we can help, we can't fix the model financially, but what we can do here in Extension is we can offer early childhood educators affordable registry credits. So these poor people who are being paid $12.20 an hour, many of them have to pay for their own continuing education credits. So imagine trying to come up with that, along with trying to pay for a home, maybe your children, all the other expenses that modern people have to pay for. So what we're doing is we're offering regional early childhood professional development workshops. I'm very proud to say the one we had, we couldn't find a place to host it here in Dunn. That's what we were aiming for. But we got together with CVTC's Energy Center, very nice facility. We sold out. We opened up more spots. We sold those out. And finally we had to stop because we had kind of filled up the room with 50 people. And they loved it. Like people came up afterwards, shook my hand and said, this is hands down the best professional development training I have ever had. And I've been in the business for 15 years. So they loved it. And I loved it. I thought we did a really good job. That's me facilitating. The room was completely full. They got lunch. They even got a gas card, and we're going to do it again. This particular workshop was so popular that we created a virtual version that is happening the end of this month. And I just promoted that a little bit for that mailing list. Like, do you know somebody who missed this? There's another chance, right? So we're going to do 2 evening classes so that working people have a chance to get those registry credits. That's something small that we can do. I wish we could fix the whole model, just like with housing, where I'm the now co-chair. I was the chair of the Housing Action Team, which is part of the Community Health Improvement Plan. KT decided to she's already pulling in the traces with me. So she's officially my co-chair, the public health director. That's another model where I wish I had a way to fix it, but I don't. We'll try and do what we can, and Extension is really good at leaning into those things that come up that we can help with. Can I have the next slide, Deanna? Another place that I feel like I've added a lot of value is with Kristen's support, I joined the board, the old board of the United Way of Dunn County, just as the United Way of Dunn County was going down. And it went down in kind of a flame. And I got to a board meeting just in time to realize that was in really big trouble. They had a lot of inexperienced board members who didn't know that they needed to get the financials every month. And so there was a lot going on, and it was very confusing and tumultuous time. And I said to Kristen, if I'm going to join this board, this is going to take a lot of time right now. She said, I think we better do it, because we found out if you lose your United Way, you never get another one. Like, they will not let you have a United Way. So if your community somehow loses it, it's just gone. So we were able to hire a consultant, get some help, and work with our local United Way so that we could join the United Way of St. Croix and Red Cedar Valley. So we renamed ourselves. So now serving multiple counties on the western part of Wisconsin, our little bulge there. And I said, let's bring back the Day of Caring. This was my idea because I remember it from when I was younger. People come out and help their neighbors. How cool is that? Let's show them that United Way is still doing something. And we did so great. We did it 2 years in a row, and we're going to do it this third year. But I want you to know, as county board people, that a lot of that value and money from the volunteers went right here to this campus. So, our neighbors right here, our nursing home, our care facility, we have really fixed that up because we had so many hundreds of hours of people out there raking and helping, dig out old nasty looking stuff and make it look nice. We even painted out here, and when you guys were talking about coming in the back door where it's really hot, those curbs got painted by volunteers. So we were taking value that we could give back to our county, as well as a whole bunch of nonprofits who really needed the help. So I'm really proud of that, and we're going to be doing it again. If anybody wants to sign up, you'll be seeing about it. You'll be seeing it in the newspaper soon, and I'll send more information about that on October 1st. And just take a look at that happy room full of people at Bill's Distributing. That's a pretty nice crew, right? And, $17,000 in value in one morning is pretty good. All right, next one, please. All right, I'm going to just wrap up by asking if you have any questions and if there's anything that you'd like to know that I could provide information on. And feel free to take home a bookmark or two. I also have one on childhood savings accounts, which I don't think our county is ready to support. I really hope someday you will be, but it's important to start saving for your kiddos. The younger, the better.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for what you do. I'm getting old. I'm an old person.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
and
too. Definitely.
I would just like to say that when I was a child, a young child, the parenting thing was kind of a simple thing. We were taught to honor our father and mother, and I was very blessed to have a set of parents that encouraged that very highly with myself and my three brothers. We learned to honor my mom and dad and not to argue with them, but to do what we were told. And that carried all the way through my life then, through school. When I got to school, I respected my teachers, and so did all the other kids that were in school with us. And I grew up right outside of Chicago. So, I mean, we had a variety of different people there. And we didn't have much for, disruptions or anything in school, because I think the kids were taught from a very early age that if you honor your mother and father, that will carry on to your schooling. And then when you get out of school, to your employer, you honor him as well, or who's employing you. And so we had a kind of a fear of a respect for the police and for law and order, because that was established at an early age. And it carries all the way through your life. And it still affects me today. Even when I was in the Army, it was very easy for me to obey my drill instructors and those that were in authority over me. And I think maybe perhaps our culture, our society has lost some of that institution, time-tested institution that really starts with children at a very young age. And so I think, and I'm sure you do encourage parents to, instill that in their children as they're in the parenting classes and stuff too.
We certainly talk about setting appropriate limits, but
Yeah.
a lot of parents need to find out what is age and stage appropriate.
Yeah.
So you don't treat your toddler the same as you treat your 11-year-old or your 15-year-old. And so there's some
True.
basics there about, expectations for behavior
Right,
that makes sense for
Yeah.
how old the kid is,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So,
and one thing I have noticed over the years as I listen to parents, which I do a lot of listening to people just talk about their parenting skills and their kids in school and thing. And one thing I noticed over the years was a tremendous amount of fear of the parents of disciplining their kids. And same thing with the teachers. They feel as if they have no ability to discipline or instruct the children in their behavior patterns. And it just seems to me as we look out at our culture and society that because we've lost some of that, and there's been a fear of what will happen if maybe a lawyer will sue you or something for what they feel is an inappropriate disciplinary action that you take on it. Parents aren't disciplining their kids and doing the things that they need to do at an early age to help them. We all need it. We have that sin nature in us, and we all need to have that curbed by us. And I'm very grateful for the parents I had, and I hope that everybody in here had parents just like mine, that they weren't mean or vicious to us, but they insisted that we honor them. And so I'm hoping that that's probably part of your program. Just listening to you, I would
we
assume
have
that
to
it
listen
is.
to where people are coming from, and, people are in a different space now. We have a lot of parents where you don't have two parents at home.
Right.
There's a lot of stepkids and reformulated families, and when people reformulate, they bring their own culture and their own expectations together. So a lot of our parenting classes, we're dealing with how do you bring two different models of parenting into one new family, right? So it's much more complex. I think what you're saying makes sense in a lot of ways, but there's also quite a lot of research, for instance, that shows that if you spank your children, it actually reduces their intellectual capacity. So you get good behavior for that moment, they're going to behave, but they're afraid of you. And it turns out that actually kind of reduces their capacity for learning. So there's a balance there. I'm not saying that you can never spank a child or that it would never be appropriate, but I think we have a lot of research, and in that particular case, that is 100 different countries, 50 years of research. So it's cross-cultural. So we know it does something to the brain. But those are all great questions, and that's the kind of
Yeah.
questions parents come up with, right? And you hit that with AI, and you might get some answers, but how do you interpret that for your own family, right? It gets really complicated. And I have to say that when people come for a parenting class, I'm usually catching them at a very vulnerable moment in their lives. One parent's in jail, or they're splitting up, or they have a child who has special needs, and things have gotten really complicated. And if you think about it, anybody that I can help move into a better place for parenting is also a family you're not as likely to have to see here in social services or over in the jail. So I think the preventative piece is really huge. And every family culture is different. Yours sounds wonderful for you and your family. I mean, it sounds like you had a really good upbringing.
Yeah, and it wasn't just, excuse me, it wasn't just my family. It just seemed like all the families that I grew up with were
Yeah,
pretty much that way, and I'm not saying that there wasn't any rebellious
sure. There's always
students,
going to be the wild ones.
but for the most part, as a whole, and even the ones that were very, that honored their teachers and honored their parents and went on to honor people, they were an influence on the ones that didn't have the best.
Yeah, community is really
so-
important. And
Absolutely.
it takes a village when you've got kids. It's really helpful to have a supportive community. I'm just going to hand out a little report on my first 6 months this year at the jail. Some of you know I do a Making Reading Memories program where we teach parents about how important it is to interact with their kids. And then they pick out a book and we record them. And Larry always said, make sure you tell them that you give them a blue shirt. So they get a shirt kind of like what you're wearing there, just a polo shirt. So they don't have to wear the orange when they record for their kids. And I think that's it. Thank
Anyway,
you.
I'd like to thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate that.
Any further comments? Thank you, Lisa. Okay. All right. All right, we're going to move on to item 6, items placed at the request of the chairperson, economic development by Adam here, so.
Good evening, everyone. So July was, or kind of June into July, I had a vacation at the end of June, and with the 4th of July, things have been a little bit slower, but I think there's still some good activity to report on kind of all the different fronts of my position. On the housing front, the city of Menominee on last Friday released an RFSOQ, or a request for statement of qualifications, for a workforce or affordable housing project on Nicholas Drive here, just south of the county building, kind of south of Anderson Windows. I was very pleased that Supervisor Barrier was also there in her capacity with GROW. Speaking in support of this, the City Council both unanimously approved the rezoning to R3 multifamily residential and the request for statement of qualifications. Both of us did share some comments, though, about the need for additional low-income housing in our community, and making sure that the council is addressing that with some of the future actions that will be taken. The town of Menominee has completed their comprehensive plan update. So they are looking to join our Development Friendly Municipalities program after giving their plan commission a couple of months off after that comprehensive plan project, and looking to get that process started in September. The Village of Colfax, I've also been working with a couple of brothers that are out of the Bloomer area that have purchased the former Mayo Clinic and nursing home, kind of right in the center of Colfax, right on the east side as you are coming into town. They have some pretty big plans for it, with some mixed use in the front section with some retail, as well as some low-income apartments on the back half. So working with them to kind of chart out their course of action for this project, they're kind of going bit by bit as they can finance the different portions of the project, but with certain state funding programs like the WEDC Idle Sites Grant that I'll mention with another project that I'm a part of. We want to make sure that we're kind of guiding them through that process and that they're able to leverage all the tools that are at their disposal with as much assistance as possible. So coordinating between those two, whatever engineering firm they ultimately select to do things like a phase 1 environmental site assessment, which is then a prerequisite for them to go after an idle sites grant that the Village of Colfax would ultimately be the applicant on. So lots of kind of moving parts with a project like this, as well as we look into the back half of their project for the low income and affordable housing, making sure that we're plugging into programs like the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority, revolving loan funds, and any other additional financial incentives that we can provide to continue to make things affordable. They have a specific focus and want to do low income efficiency. And so helping them plug into the financial tools to really make sure that that becomes a reality for Colfax. On the small business and entrepreneurship front, we received in the last month our $85,954 request from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation for round 2 of our small business development grant. That brings us up to a combined total of just over $200,000 that we have committed to grants for small businesses throughout Dunn County. We have just shy of $50,000 remaining for round 3, which we are launching on August 1st. So bringing this timeline up about a month and a half, just so we can make sure that we are getting these dollars out by the end of the year. That's primarily to save the Dunn County Economic Development Corporation on an added cost of a schedule of expenditures audit. With this particular grant, a requirement of the WEDC is that the individual account that these funds are housed within is audited independently of anything else that we do. And so we completed our first schedule of expenditures audit for 2025 and are hoping to only have to do one for 2026. It's about a $2,500 expense, and with WEDC grants, they don't allow you to write that into any program costs. And as a reminder of this grant, it was $250,000 that we received in spring of last year. And it is entirely a pass-through grant. So we didn't receive any dollars for program administration or my time in administering it. It was all in the door directly into the pockets of our small businesses throughout the county. On the business attraction front, we did receive one request for information. It does seem to be a good fit. We are just making sure that we're doing our due diligence on the site selection firm that is assisting this company with their expansion efforts. It is a traditional manufacturing operation, so looking at some potential sites in the Stout Technology Park that have really good synergy with the programs that exist at UW Stout, and hoping that we can create some nice collaborations between the university and a new industry that may look to site here. We have been working on our LOIS platform. So LOIS is Location One Information Systems. This is the new WEDC platform for positioning any available properties and sites. So as you go to the Dunn Economic Development website, we now have the property listings of vacant parcels as well as vacant buildings for reuse. Listed on that, and we have drilled down all the way to downtown Menominee level. And so downtown Menominee will be using the same platform under the same umbrella that the WEDC is offering it to the county EDC, where they will be able to put the vacant properties in downtown Menominee on the site that'll feed into the city of Menominee's site, that will feed into the county's site, and into the regional Momentum West site, as well as the state and national databases. So a lot of where I kind of had this last slide and we've seen a decline in some of our requests for information. A lot of companies are using platforms like LOIS to look for the properties that fit the bill of what they are seeking. And so they plug in all of their filters and they get a list of a couple top candidates of properties, and they pursue those directly rather than through kind of a request for information process like has been common in the past. GSLI is the site selection firm that I mentioned in the previous slide that we're just evaluating. They have a slightly different model where they kind of aggregate site requests and allow communities to apply right through their portal, just evaluating whether or not that is a tool that we would like to utilize moving forward, or whether it's something that we'll maybe take advantage of just for this one opportunity. I've also been working with the city of Menominee to receive our certification on our opportunity zone for version 2.0. Opportunity zones were a product of Trump 1 back in about 2017. So these are zones that capital gains can be invested into to receive tax benefits. And there are lots of different ways that opportunity zones can be utilized, both for industrial, commercial, and residential development. And the investment funds that invest in opportunity zones typically have specific focus areas. So currently we have 2 census tracts, the one that covers downtown Menominee and the University of Wisconsin Stout, and one that extends east of that out across the Stout Technology Park, ending just shy of the vacant Cothlow property, so right at the Anderson Windows border. And it kind of snakes around the southeastern part of the city of Menominee. Only the tract that surrounds the university and a couple of our downtown parcels is eligible for this second iteration of opportunity zones. So we're really positioning this opportunity zone as a benefit to our industrial parks for additional workforce and infill housing, as well as the ability to revitalize the downtown and offset some of the additional costs that comes with historic building revitalization and infrastructure costs associated with that. The process for this, we apply first with the state of Wisconsin. The state is allowed to submit 25% of their eligible opportunity zones. We have about 400 opportunity zones. So that means we get to submit about 100 top candidates through the state. So really making sure that we're positioning ourselves well for this competitive process. But we have received letters of support from regional organizations and are also seeking a few letters of support from private investors that took advantage of the opportunity zone incentives in Opportunity Zones 1.0. A couple of the other things. I am a proud graduate of the latest cohort of Leadership Menominee. We had our graduation celebration last month where we presented on our community projects. Ours, if you remember, was working with Indian Head Enterprises to really showcase their services to potential industry partners to help them drum up a little bit more business in their workshop. to allow folks with disabilities the ability to have jobs that they can complete and feel success doing, as well as provide a vital service to our industry that maybe has projects that they can offload for these specific purposes. I also had a meeting with Anna Ringstead of Senator Tammy Baldwin's office just to talk about some of our local concerns and also check in on Elk Mound's application for congressionally designated spending, which we should hopefully have a little bit more information on later this year. Again, that was a $2.47 million request to the U.S. Senate to appropriate funds for a new 100,000 gallon holding tank and about 3 miles of looped pipe in the village of Elk Mound to help with their redundancy and also help get the Settlers Ridge development moving forward again to add additional much needed housing for us. The Wisconsin Economic Development Association is doing a 3-part series right now on demystifying development. This is a project that they've taken on in the last couple of months and formed an ad hoc committee that I've been a part of to really make sure that we are equipping our communities with the tools that they need to talk about large-scale development, regardless of industry, and make sure that we're equipping economic developers with better tools to talk with their communities. I was also working with Garrett on a renewable energy academy and bringing that UW Extension initiative here to Dunn County. UW Stout has many students from across the country actually working at UW Stout on various research projects, and so I've been fortunate to be a part of 2 of those different interviews. And then one of the projects that I'm really excited about is working with the Menominee Area School District on the Downsville School. So the Downsville School closed this past academic year. They formed a committee to determine whether it was viable to reopen it as an educational facility and found that there wasn't really a viable path for that. And so rather than just putting it on the open market, hoping that somebody with good intentions buys it and brings a project across the finish line, we've been working on a proposal of some pre-work to determine the highest and best use of the facility, as well as do some of the environmental site assessment, as well as community engagement to figure out what the community would support, what the market would support, and what the building would support. So that we're not offering kind of a blank canvas to a potential buyer or developer. We're saying, this is what we have found that would be of benefit. This is what the community supports that is within that plan. And this would be the template and preferred use of that for the ultimate sale of that building. So this has been a cool collaboration with the school district. We're going to be bringing the Greater Menominee Development Corporation into it next week and looking at various programs that we can kind of stack on top of each other, including an idle sites grant for this property. With the idle sites grant, we will be working with the county and the county board specifically, as typically the municipality is the one that applies for the idle sites grant. An idle sites grant is typically a pass-through grant of up to $250,000, matched 3 to 1. The WEDC is looking at revising those kind of parameters and making it a 1-to-1 for smaller communities. But because Downsville is unincorporated, the county would be the municipality that would kind of be most apt to support an application like this. And those are typically grants that are passed through to a developer. And so it wouldn't be an expense on the county's end. It would be a developer expending dollars for this and then receiving reimbursement through this grant process. Couple of the upcoming things. I know that I presented about Dunn County Economic Development 101. We did get bumped to September 23rd. Previously, it was on September 22nd, a Tuesday. It's been bumped to September 23rd, a Wednesday in September. Again, this will be a morning event. We are zeroing in on where this event will be held, but specifically for our elected officials, municipal staff, and interested community members that are interested in how economic development works. One of the really nice things about the Demystifying Economic Development course that WIDA's offering right now is talking about how the state process doesn't differ greatly from municipality to municipality. And so really understanding how that process works so that you can get your voice involved and engaged in projects that are important to you, so that we can make sure that our communities are developing in ways that are supported by constituents and by the folks that live, work, and play in these communities. We're also going to be bringing the Wisconsin Rural Partners Organization, a nonprofit board that I sit on, to Colfax on September 24th. So they go around the state hosting 4 small community forums to talk about economic development initiatives in small communities, kind of idea share, and develop strategies for other small communities to learn from. And so this will be coming to Dunn County this year, and we'll look for ways to loop the Colfax community and this forum into the annual summit, which will be taking place in Chippewa Falls next April. With that, are there any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Looks like you're good. Good report.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
I'll move on to 6B, Dunn County Communications. Jenna?
Okay, good evening. I don't have a PowerPoint for you, but maybe that offers a little reprieve. Happy to create them in the future if that's helpful. But I'll keep this quick because I know we have a big agenda today. So our last month or so had consisted of 3 different press releases that we work with Doug Mell Communications for. There was a feature on the treatment court program within our criminal justice collaboration division. You may have seen most recently a press release regarding the fair, the enhancements that they've made for this year that has made its way to other news media sources. So it's always good to see that. And a few weeks ago, an update on our highway building that we are looking to begin into 2027. The filming process that we discussed last month for the county feature videos that are on our website will begin next Wednesday. This is timely with the fair, so they will be getting some footage at the fair, as well as across other municipalities in the county and visiting school districts and things like that. So that will be a big project for our web specialist and communication specialist, Chris Avind. The other thing that we have been working on, and that's on the horizon for the deadline was extended for April of 2028, is the ADA requirements as it relates to our website and social media pages. So that is something that we are looking into, exploring options for how to ensure that we meet the requirements of that new law. It is specific to meeting accessibility standards, things like screen readers being able to read PDFs that we have on our website and things like that. We have had some discussion with our Committee on Administration on that, but would look forward to bringing some additional updates to this committee as well, as it does serve as one of our main platforms for communication. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Doesn't look like we have any, so thank you. Move on to item 6C. I have asked Dunn County Clerk to give us a presentation on the process of the library fund, so Andrew.
Thanks, Bob. Several of you have heard the library funding presentation before, and we're going to talk a little bit about the library funding for next year as well. So I'll keep this fairly brief and just kind of talk a little bit about this. Library funding can be a complicated concept. So I'll try to make this as easy to flow as possible. So our particular library systems in Dunn County are part of IFLIS, which is that darker purplish color? Sure. 10 county region in western Wisconsin. And so, but overall, there's 381 public libraries across the state of Wisconsin. And in those, actually in any community, a person can request materials or services from any library of those 381 public libraries across the state. And so oftentimes what our local libraries and libraries are doing is tracking who's using their materials. And so one of the things that the libraries spend a lot of time doing is just making sure that we are tracking that so that the libraries can go back to the counties in which the residents are who are using their materials and request reimbursement for those. That's essentially what we're doing. Okay, D, can we go next? So you can kind of see, this is last year's data, but this is just general usage by county. So the orange line is total use, the orange bar is the total use, and you can see there's the Menominee, Colfax, Boyceville, and Sand Creek libraries down there at the bottom. Total use in any given year. The green is use from in-county, that's our in-county residents. And then, so it's broken down to in-county and out-of-county. So if you take the green plus the black equals orange, right? So you can see that there's materials, and actually in our Menominee Public Library, we're actually getting more materials from requests from out-of-county residents, which is interesting. But it is, of course, a little bit larger of a library. We have that same thing in Sand Creek, also because of the location of Sand Creek being really close to the border of other counties. So that's just kind of a brief overview. So who pays? Essentially, everyone in the county pays in some way, shape, or form. If your community has a library, you are assessed a local library tax based on your municipal rates. But what we then don't do is tax you again for those library services. So the county has the ability to leverage a tax to reimburse. It's not part of the levy limits, but it is to make sure that the libraries are reimbursed based on Chapter 43 of the Wisconsin state statutes. But essentially that means that each municipality, our 4 municipalities in Dunn County that have a library, take a county exemption. So the city residents are already being taxed for their library. We're not going to double tax them essentially. So that's kind of how that works. So like for example, City of Menominee has a library. We don't charge them a county tax. But the towns of Colfax and the village of Knapp, they do not have a library. So they are assessed a library fee for reimbursement. Chapter 43 really dictates all of the funding for how libraries work, right? Libraries, state statutes state that all libraries must receive a minimum of 70% reimbursement for the services that are provided to residents of Dunn County, for example. We have a long tradition in Dunn County of funding our in-county libraries at 100% reimbursement rates because we value them so much. And that all of the out-of-county at a minimum 70. This is totally dependent on county boards. The 72 counties in Wisconsin all have their own formula. This is the Dunn County tradition that we have had here as well. But it basically says, you know, you can levy a tax to provide funds for the library. Okay. Then, so library works in a 3-year cycle. So we're in 2026, but what's happening right now is in the yellow, you can see we've completed 2025. The libraries have all assembled their information, right, of usage and participation in services, and they figured out their circulation costs. And then what they do is then divvy out that money across the usage. So like, let's say in Sand Creek, there were 432, making up numbers, Shelley, 432 instances of individuals using, from Chippewa County, using the Sand Creek materials. So Sand Creek is going to say, all right, Chippewa, based on our circulation costs times 432 usage, we need this much money back from you at 70%. So that's kind of how that works. So in 2025, the year happens, 26, they assemble the reports of 2025, and then we pay them out in 2027. So we're always kind of a year, 3 years in that cycle. Okay. So this is actually what we're looking at for the overall cost from last year. This was for the 2026 budget that was adopted. And you can see our out-of-county totals at 70% was $161,896. And our in-county totals at 100% funding was $709,630. $693,000. So a total of $871,000 was expended to provide library reimbursement requests in 2026. And then what we have to do is actually we have to apportion out the taxes. This is the spreadsheet that dominates my entire life in November. It's super fun. But what is a demonstration here is that you can see that, for example, for our library purposes, the village of Boyceville, the village of Colfax, and the city of Menominee are not assessed the library taxes because, and the town of Sand Creek, because they have their library, right? So anyone with the slash, they're not sent the county funding. So of that 800 and, these are the new numbers, $871,000, it has to be divvied out amongst the entire municipalities of the county to make sure that we can have that funded. Okay, too many numbers, move on. And then I always finish with this quote, right? Whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation. That was a famous Walter Cronkite one. So that's a quick overview of how library funding works. I'm trying to be cognizant of the time. So are there questions about how funding works or anything like that with our libraries before we move into the library funding portion of it?
Just want to move right ahead?
Sure.
Okay, we'll
That
move to
sounds
item
great.
7 then. Consideration to actions to be taken by the Community Resources and Tourism.
Yeah.
The budgets.
Yes, the budgets. So I think the most important part, it's probably in page, I don't know, Deanna, 392 of your packet. It's going to be this graph. It's a very thick packet. It's this graph. I think it's maybe towards the beginning-ish part of it. Do you remember where this one is?
14. Page 14.
Page 14. Oh, not bad. So if we pull up page 14 and you look at the graph, that's kind of the most important part. Dee, are you able to bring that up on the thing? So as you're looking at this particular chart, one of the things I wanted to mention is on that top bar in 2027, it's looking at all of the funding requests. All libraries have until July 1st to put in their funding requests for reimbursement. So we've assembled them all. They've all been received. And what we're basically doing is looking at an overall, currently, decrease of about $6,500 from all the library requests that have come in. Now, each year circulation costs are determined based on how much is circulated. So these numbers are always kind of in flux. Of course, it always has to also do with the usage of each library. But essentially what we're looking at is a $6,500 overall reduction in library funding between last year's payouts of $709,000 and this year's to $703,000. However, one of the things that's important to note is that of that $6,500, it's an average. So you can see that library funding is set to increase to the Boyceville Public Library by $2,800, increase to Colfax by $9,000, and decrease to the Menominee Public Library by $17,600, right? That's a pretty big hit. And then also a decrease of $843 to Sand Creek. Now, when we think about Menominee versus Sand Creek, they're basically the same kind of a hit. No offense, Shelley, but based on the sizes of libraries that we're looking at. So one of the things that we're kind of talking about is one of the requests that came up in our library funding committee or our library planning committee is would there be a possibility of doing an average, like average of 5 years of funding? Could we look at that to maybe stabilize our libraries so they're not going through these big ups and downs every year? If you recall, last year, Colfax was going to take a big hit, and the CR&T committee agreed to, I think, pony up an additional $5,000. Was it 5, Gary? To help kind of offset a little bit of that hit. So the other thing I wanted to show you is on this particular part of the graphic, that next line, the difference between 2026 payments and what we're scheduled for 2027 is there was that $40,000. So we actually went up between 2025 and 2026 in the amount of funding that was requested. However, what we're looking at for 2027 is a decrease from $871,000 to $852,000. So we're actually looking at a decrease overall of funding requests of about $19,000. It would be up to this committee if they wanted to make a recommendation to continue funding at a level close to our funding levels last year to even out the hit that would be potentially faced by Sand Creek and the Menominee Public Library. So if you look at that top, can you scroll up at all a little bit? So if you look, we were at $19,000 as a potential decrease in overall requests, but we're looking at roughly $8,500 in decreases to our libraries. So if we were to stabilize funding and keep the funding at the same level, we could actually help those libraries not have such a big hit. Does that make sense? So the overall requests have decreased, but then our potential funding requests for our libraries has also decreased for those two. So if we stabilized funding, the libraries in our county could actually potentially not have such a huge hit. So that's where we're at currently. Are there questions on that?
I do have a question on the 27 and the bottom one, overall funding from Dunn County.
Yeah.
Where'd that 148,961 come from? If you look on top on the 70% of the county,
That's the out of county libraries one.
right, but on your upper one, it should be 167,694, shouldn't it? If you, the other sheet, yeah. I went through the numbers. I couldn't find that number anywhere on here, so I
Sorry, I don't have the spreadsheet pulled up. Okay. I know. Can you scroll down to right before the in-county requests? So right there, 167.
I was a little confused on the number. It don't really
Yeah.
don't come out anywhere, so I don't know if these numbers are right.
Math is hard. That's a good question, Bob. 870. Oh, okay. I know the answer to this. Oh, thank you for leading into my next part. The reason is that after July 1st was completed, this information was assembled and sent to Deanna to put in your packet. Subsequently, we received a request from the Chippewa Falls Library, and their funding is included on this spreadsheet. No, I'm sorry. How does this work? Did they mess this up? Okay, the numbers on this sheet does not include Chippewa. The numbers on this spreadsheet does include Chippewa. The issue was, Deanna, can you scroll to the Chippewa one? It's up in the C's. Yeah, so here's where it is. So is it not Chippewa? One of them came in differently. So one of the requests had come in after the funding information was assembled, and I'm sorry, I thought it was Chippewa. Let me look it up real quick. What? From the county. I was looking at, so if you didn't, you got to scroll a little bit farther over, Deanna, to the left. Chippewa Falls. Oh, okay, there it is. So if you look on this particular spreadsheet, you can see that the request for Chippewa Falls came in on 7/6, which is after the July 1st deadline. So that's why these numbers have been modified. Their 70% funding would be $8,200. So it would kind of be up to the committee, and the Chippewa Falls Library was notified of that they did submit their information late, and that it would be up to the committee on whether they wanted to fund the Chippewa Library at that $8,200. So that's where the numbers are different. I'm sorry that that's confusing. So the spreadsheet has the difference without Chippewa Falls on it. This more summary. This one has the actual Chippewa Falls numbers in there. So I'm sorry that that gets confusing. But so I think the tackle one is to what the committee wants to do on the funding for Chippewa Falls, and then two, what the committee would like to see make as a recommendation to the county for adoption for library budgets.
So you're saying that since they came in late, we wouldn't have to supply that at all?
We're not legally required to fund them because the due date is July 1st.
So it's up to you committee to think about it then?
Did they have an explanation why they didn't get it in time?
Their explanation was we sent it to an email address that has never existed in Dunn County. We have received requests from the Chippewa Falls Public Library in years past, but there wasn't really a good rationale for it. I don't know.
Go ahead, Monica.
I mean, I was gonna say, we used their service. Yeah, they messed up the request for reimbursement. They missed the deadline, but I'm inclined to pay them for what we used.
Yeah, I guess I can't, as much as I would actually love to support them if we're not legally obligated to support them due to them submitting late, if that's money that we could put elsewhere. Instead,
Jenna,
that, I think that
Do
would
we need
be,
a motion or anything to
Everybody wants
pass
to.
this through or?
Is Gary, did you? I'm sorry, it's not up to me, it's up to Bob, but.
Thank you. I'm the chairman of the Dunn County Library Board, Gary Steen, District 5 Supervisor. We had a really good meeting with the library board. Some of our library committee members asked some very good questions. And that's part of the reason that we thought that it would be important to go through the mechanics of how libraries are funded, not knowing that we'd have a second item of Chippewa entering the thing. Basically, from our standpoint, we didn't know that, but from our standpoint, and the committee took a unanimous vote to approve funding us at 100%. With the questions that were asked, one of them was Supervisor Laufer said, well, people might want to know what are our libraries doing to try to help themselves. And so that's why the librarians are here today, to kind of answer those questions if you have any, and explain what they try to do to generate extra income. And then from my point of view, I certainly would urge you to consider funding the libraries at 100%. And I brought up the idea, like, I don't know how many people here are familiar with the ETF funding for the retirement, but that's a 5-year smooth approach to things. They don't react year by year. It's a 5-year smooth so that you don't have these big fluctuations. So, and I don't know how that could be applied here, but maybe it could be, which would give the committee a little better handle on as they deal with this stuff. So that's where I'm coming from. And I hated to interrupt here, and I'm here to lend moral support to the librarians. But unfortunately, and I'll give you an update on the Colfax Library, I'm going to have to leave right away. We are interviewing, or not interviewing, but we're reviewing 12 applications for the new library director in Colfax tonight. So that's why I'm going to be leaving really soon here. So we're moving forward on that. And just to give you an update there, have I stated things the way they come out of our meeting? Okay. Any questions for me? I think traditionally, since I've been involved, we've funded our libraries 100%. We've had some ups and downs. I know Colfax appreciated the help that we got last year, the village board. upped what they gave and you guys upped what you gave. And I would be appreciative if we could follow that same general vein of, and that's all I got to say. And I'm going to I apologize for having to leave and leave my librarians in the lurch, but I got to take care of the other business at the library in Colfax. So
Before you leave, Gary,
Yeah.
being you've been on the board for a long time,
Yeah.
have you ever seen anything, an instance like this where,
they didn't get it in on time?
yeah, that and the explanation that they gave to,
No, I haven't. And so, this first I heard about it myself. So my gut reaction would be, that's a pretty poor excuse. Actually, it's no excuse, you know. So having said that, the hairs on my back of my neck are up a little bit on this. But having said that, traditionally we have good relationships with all the other libraries. I can't tell you what happened over there. Maybe they had a change in administration. I got no idea. I guess if it's not up to me, but I guess I would urge looking at it charitably, so to speak, because they're not asking for anything more. They just didn't get it in on time. And I leave that up to you. That's your guys' ball of wax here, but that's how I feel about it. And whatever you would decide to do, it's not my call. So having said that, I'm going to have to speed going home here. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Gary.
Well, I should mention that I think Callie Anderson from the Boyceville Public Library is online, as well as Shelley Ray from the Chlorella Hackett Sand Creek Library and Jolene Strick from the Menominee Public Library are also here. I do want to mention this one thing. So although it wasn't anticipated that you would get the notes are also in here. So this is the spreadsheet that the county clerk's office, as dictated by Chapter 43 of the Wisconsin State Statutes, is required to keep as the requests come in. And what we do is you can actually see there's several components on here that we list. Oftentimes, certain libraries will use like 6 decimal places when they go to run their numbers. We use regular math, so we use 2, and because cents are cents. And so there's oftentimes when public libraries will submit a request, and we have to send them a note back that says, first of all, we say, we've received your information, thank you so much. We always confirm with the libraries. We have received it, we'll put it in the hopper. So that's one fail-safe that we always do that the libraries know. 2, if there's ever an addition or correction that we need to make, we usually do that immediately. So we can say, you use 6 decimal places, we use 2. Our calculation from Dunn County would mean this, and it might be the difference of $300, it might be the difference of 47 cents. But we always let them know that. So that is one of our fail-safes, and you can see there's several parts of information that we list there on the notes so that we can help keep track that they've been notified, that there was a difference in maybe what funding requesting was. So you can see here in the Chippewa one, received on 7/6/26. She said the originally emailed on June 2nd. She used an incorrect email address. We did not receive it. It was an email that's never existed for Dunn County. So that's kind of the ways that we keep track of that. I don't know if you'd want to hear from either of our 3 library directors that are here, but they are here. Are there other questions, though, about the library funding? I'm sorry that
Yeah, so,
Throughout
yeah, it was
everybody.
confusing, and I went through all the numbers, I couldn't find that number anywhere, so, if we move this forward at 100% and 70%, when it gets sent to the county, will this be changed? Overall funding to the from Dunn County? You'll change that number, or will it go forward, and then you'll have an explanation of why?
Well, I'll change the number going forward, especially on this more easily interpretable spreadsheet. I actually did this just on my computer, and with the with the Chippewa request that came in at changing it to 167,694, the overall difference would be, now it's only $724. So,
That's what I had to.
yeah, between funding. So it does make quite a difference. So there was $871,000 worth of funding requests in 26 that were funded. The new 27 numbers, including CHIPA, would be 870,000 and some change. So roughly now there's only $724 difference. So if the committee wanted to make a recommendation to fund 100% of in-county libraries and 70% of out-of-county libraries, that would certainly be your prerogative. But similar to what has happened in Colfax in the past is I think that there might be a request at a later date from maybe Menominee and the Sand Creek Library to see if we could work between the county and their communities to make up a little bit of the difference, because those are some pretty decent decreases that might affect their budgets going forward for next year.
I think it was Colfax 2 years ago and Boyceville last year, I think, if I
Okay,
remember it.
thank you.
And we did not do anything with Boyceville. We just kind of throw the money too as well, but
Yep.
the Colfax we did, yes.
Colfax, I think the overall difference for Colfax was $12,000 to their budget, and county agreed to do $5,000.
Yeah.
And I think the village of Colfax stepped up some funding as well. So
And I don't know who was on the board at that time in Boyceville. I asked them to get me some numbers and the numbers never come back, so we couldn't do anything anyways.
sure, yep. So
So it's committee 70, 100 or 70, 70? You got choices here, you know?
I think I would prefer to keep it at the 100% for the county libraries and then 70% for everybody else. However, I think it would be a wise choice to maybe consider for next budget of working on an average solution so that we can avoid having to make up for it in the future and
Yes.
other budget adjustments, because that is a precedent that I think we should not be
And-
living by.
And thank you for having me circle back to that. We did look at the legalities of doing a average funding versus the ebb and flow every year. And we can't based on the state statutes. We have to fund the request at either a minimum of 70% each year, or anything above and beyond that would be the subject and purview of the county. So.
Even if you did the I think he was talking about the rolling 5-year thing.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
can
the same
certainly
thing.
run numbers like that going forward, and we can kind of look at the averages. That's what, before this got messed up, that's what this was supposed to do, to kind of look at funding year over year. But we could certainly look at a funding over a 5-year plan. This spreadsheet, well, now it's out of date, but does have like the last 4 years of funding, so you can kind of see the overall
Mhm.
difference between year over year. But I can do it. I can totally do it in a more visually graphic, interesting way.
I think
Yeah.
more so, I think it might be helpful if it's something where we can figure out, instead of supporting them at 100%, if it's like 98%, so that we could support, for example, support the Boyceville and Colfax libraries a little bit less so that we could support the Menominee and Sand Creek libraries
If
a little
there's
bit more
if
if
there's a
there's a surplus, and however, but to figure out what that percentage is
Sure.
instead of having to do that mental math.
I mean, that's certainly, it'd be up to the library planning committee, but I think the library planning committee could certainly take that back, and we could maybe look at some of those funding options for different scenarios going forward.
Go ahead, Tim.
Andrew, is it possible for the 4 libraries to, agree to help each other that way? Like Spencer was saying, to take some of the surplus of the one and transfer it over to the other, every year do that, so that we're not, it's just not benefiting one library over all the other ones, or
Yeah.
whatever, but
We want a library hungers game, the situation.
kind of like, yeah.
Maybe it's a fundraiser that you could think about. I think there's definitely an option that we could do that when we meet with the library planning committee meets with the library directors, and we can talk about that as we bring a new policy forward to the CR&T committee to adopt. I think that's certainly something in the purview that we could look at.
Bring it to the chair,
Mhm.
Gary Steen.
Yep.
Get it on the agenda so we can talk about it, I guess. Was that a motion to,
I guess, yeah, I'd like to make a motion to support the county libraries at 100% and all of the other libraries at 70%.
okay, we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any more talk? Any questions, comments? we know what we're voting for. It's 100% for in-county, 70% out of county.
Question. So, is this including or excluding Chippewa?
I think if we do all of them, it'd be including.
Okay,
We're doing all of them. I think that's why.
I'd support that. All right, thanks.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, anybody? No? Passes unanimously. Thank you, guys.
I
Tough question there for
It,
you.
sorry about that for the change in Chippewa. I do think that one of the things that's important to note is what we did 2 years ago with Colfax was we did use contingency funds to help make up some of the costs. So knowing that we have some time before the budget is adopted by the overall county in November, maybe that's something that if the CRNT committee would want to take up to look at maybe some funding for contingency. I know that there was going to be a request with the city of Menominee to maybe find some funding if they have any available to offset that $17,000 decrease. So I will work with Bob on that going forward, just so you're aware.
Yeah.
Andrew, I had a question too. Is there a county donations fund that is shared at all between the libraries? Has it ever been, or is donations just strictly to each individual library?
Donations have historically been through each individual library. We don't have a county system to do that. I don't know if IFLIS has an opportunity for people to donate and specify library funding. I'd have to double check on that, the library system that we use in that 10 county region in western Wisconsin. But it's never been a request of something that we've had for the county as far as like people to donate money online. Maybe Jolene knows something about it.
I was just.
Yes, the Community Foundation of Dunn County has a pot. Yes. And I should mention that I believe the Menominee Public Library has a Friends of the Library annual foundation, as does Boyceville, but Sand Creek does not yet.
Okay. So in the past, I know Shelley has said that we've had to, or the library has had to tap into donations to balance the budget at the end or whatever. And that fund is getting low. So that's why I was questioning whether or not there was a county-wide donation fund that could be utilized if a library happens to need some extra funding to balance their budget or whatever.
I think it's definitely something that we could make sure that if somebody approached the county and wanting to donate, we would probably direct them to the individual libraries or that community foundation fund at the community foundation. But that's a good point.
So, I mean, if the question comes up and the Menominee does do some fundraising, comes up with some money, maybe they can bring a request back to us to not the whole amount, maybe whatever percent they need. So, thank you. Any questions on the library? Okay, we'll move on to West Central Regional Planning Commission. Oh, yeah.
Okay, now I'm good. I'll start over. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. My name is Susan Badke, and I'm with the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. I know you have a few other requests to get through tonight, so I'm going to try to keep this short. But I do think it's important that I take a few minutes just to share a little bit about who we are and what we do as an organization. I'm sure you read through all the materials in your packet. The West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, we are one of 9 regional planning commissions, or RPCs, throughout the state of Wisconsin, created under state statute. And we have a specific purpose, and that is to help our member counties plan for the physical, social, and economic development of our region. Our 7 counties, we serve St. Croix County and Polk County over on the west along the St. Croix River, all the way over east to Clark County, hitting Dunn, Eau Claire, Chippewa, and Barron along the way. In terms of our funding request, our funding request is based on equalized value throughout our 7 counties. So we take a look, our executive committee and our commission evaluate that annually. This year, our specific funding request for Dunn County is $26,269, about a 2%, just shy of a 2% increase from 2026. And you can see that in your materials. Similar to UW Extension, right? In the video that we couldn't hear, but we could read, we leverage our member county funds. So our levy that we get from our 7 member counties equals about 15%, 16% of our overall operating budget. But we're able to leverage those funds and use them as matching funds for federal and state sources. So we are a designated economic development district through the federal government, Economic Development Administration. We're able to leverage funds from our 7 counties and utilize funding from EDA, also from DOT funding. So we have rural transportation funds that we have, as well as some urban transportation funds. So we're able to leverage those. We are a quasi-governmental agency, so we're able to keep our costs with our 7-member county support, keep our costs for a variety of planning, community, economic development projects kind of at a more manageable rate, and assist our counties and communities where we can with projects. In our submission was kind of a listing of the projects that we have worked on in Dunn County for 2026. I want to highlight a few of them. The first being, and Supervisor Barrier was on the Planning Resources and Development Committee, who I've been working closely with over the last year and a half on updating the county's comprehensive plan and farmland preservation update. And so meeting actually with PR&D on Thursday. So Supervisor Bauer and Steyer will get a whole deep dive into that draft comprehensive plan on Thursday morning at PR&D, but held a number of different public engagement opportunities, conducted a survey, a mailed farmland owner survey. So perhaps some of you, if you own farmland, perhaps you received that survey. Hopefully you filled that out. We had a really excellent response rate. It was to farmland owners with 30 or more acres in Dunn County. A number of focus groups, had some town open house meetings. All of that input has been fed into working alongside your planning and zoning director, fed into that draft plan update. Another project I want to highlight is our hazard mitigation plan. One of our planners has worked closely with the county on updating their hazard mitigation plan. Why is that important? Well, it's important to review what your mitigation procedures are, but it also positions the county to obtain funding through FEMA for certain mitigation and preparedness projects, such as safe rooms, other types of flood mitigation grant dollars as well. And then lastly, I want to highlight, we work very closely with our regional partners, our state partners, our federal partners, and county economic development corporations as well. We administer a revolving loan fund through our regional business fund. That's a fund that was established by the Regional Planning Commission many years ago, consolidated pool of funds throughout our 7-county region that we're able to provide low interest business loans for startups, expansions, and provide some gap financing to support local businesses in our region. In 2026, the Regional Business Fund managed 4 loans in Dunn County. Those loans totaled $435,000, just over that, but more importantly, benefited 72 jobs and leveraged $8 million in private investment. So taking that small amount of loan dollars makes a big investment and value to Dunn County. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to present.
How many employees do you guys employ?
Sure. So we're currently going through a transition. Our staffing right now, there are 13 staff members with a part-time interim executive director. Sure.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
We have a Questions on the budget request? $26,292.69, I think it was. I'm gonna make a motion, decline.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the funding request as presented.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and second. Any questions? Comments? We're voting on the budget for WCWRC, so. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. As all these fundings, I mean, we're gonna pass it on to the board, so it could all change. So we're moving it forward, so we're doing what we're doing, so this way everybody knows that could change down the line. Next in line is outside agencies, Dunn County Housing Authority. Got
Hello.
anybody on that one? Oh, somebody's on. There you are. Okay.
Hi. So I am Tammy July Lovera with the Dunn County Housing Authority. I did present to the Dunn County Board in February and just kind of want to add on to that a little bit. Our current numbers, we have 66 vouchers in use for the month of July. Our waiting list is at 226. And one of the big things on our request, one of the things that I added this year is the technology has forced us to move to getting a new software in order to keep up with the program, which initially is a big cost. WestCap was able to handle most of the cost for us, but then moving forward, it'll be not a huge difference to our budget, but adds $1,000 a year. Potentially down the road, it actually will be a savings because we'll be able to do a lot more electronically. We'll have a landlord portal, so we can do some of the required federal forms. They've made it so that most of them can be signed electronically, and so eventually will be a savings. But this 2027 is the startup of it, and so we did change our request slightly because of that. I was glad sitting through the meeting today to hear everyone saying that there's a need for housing and affordable housing and some stuff happening. That's kind of exciting to hear. I'll be contacting Adam to find out a little bit more about this Colfax project that he was talking about. But anyways, I guess I don't know as far as the request, if there's any questions or anything particular that you'd like me to cover.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just curious, is it because the population is increasing, or is it just that there's less building going on to meet the needs of the additional housing requests that are there?
You mean as far as for why there's such a need for affordable housing?
Right.
For housing in general?
For housing in general.
The biggest part, I mean, there was a big study that was done in Dunn County, so there's more pieces to it, but the biggest part that I see is the aging population. And like we now, for our program, it has definitely each year kind of grown, and we're at 60%, as of December, 60% of our voucher holders were elderly and disabled. And a big part of that is, of course, needing the rental housing. A lot of the retired population are being forced to, they can't upkeep their home, be it in, whatever home that they were in for many years, moving into rental properties. And there's only so much to go around. So, I mean, this is probably nationwide, but I know for sure it's Wisconsin, it's statewide. But as far as affordable housing being built. I think the Elk Mound project was one of the things that came up during this meeting, and which is great. All housing is great, but because of the cost of infrastructure and things like that, when developments happen, they're not usually affordable housing. So there's it's so expensive to build housing to start with, and like I said, there's just the need, the growing need there. It's kind of a sandwich situation because there's also kind of a chunk of the younger generation that they don't want to be homeowners. It's just easier to rent and have someone taking care of your lawn and snow and those kind of things. So again, that's a little chunk of the population that in the past would have been homeowners, and now they're wanting to be renters, and there's only so much rental stock to go around.
So what is your standard for, or what do you call affordable then, by the standards that you meet or have for the people that apply? What would affordable housing look like, or what dollar amount would be on that?
For the voucher holders, they pay 30% of their gross income. So nothing is deducted towards their housing, and then we assist with whatever's left over. We do have what's called payment standards. So there's of course a cap on what that can be. Most of the voucher holders and most of the population that I talk to, when I talk about as far as our limits, they think we're crazy, but because there's so much overpricing in Dunn County. But just off the top of my head, the suggestions. It's not a steadfast rule for every property because it's rent plus utilities. So we have to look at what utilities the tenants pay and what type of heat and that sort of thing. But just kind of a ballpark, like our recommended rent for 1 bedroom is $750. For 2 bedroom is $875. Our 3 bedroom is $1,100. And I don't know if you kind of taken a look out there, but you can definitely find places renting for double that amount in Dunn County. So, I mean, we try to keep it pretty affordable, but also we try to stay within the recommended HUD limits. Because we do not want to be part of the overpricing. We don't want to encourage it. We don't want to, if we're assisting one person in an 8-plex, and our rates are set really high, and we're encouraging, the kind of what's been going on with the rent increases, then there's 7 other tenants in that building that are going to be struggling to afford their housing. So we have, we do a lot of studying behind our limits.
Thank you.
And your request was for what, how much?
51,000.
I didn't see that on there anywhere. I couldn't find it. Okay.
That 51,000 is an increase then from
What
last
percent?
year, or what's the 51,000 include?
Last year was 49,000. So this year we requested. Yeah,
Okay.
so just.
Up to the board. You want to pass this?
I guess I wanted,
Debate on it? Anything? Nope.
I actually wanted to add something as a young person myself who is hopefully able to look at homeownership. I think it's more fair to say that a lot of us in my generation would love to own a home and would love to be owner occupied. However, it's simply just unaffordable, and even renting is not affordable. I'm already paying more than what my salary realistically could provide me. But the housing options, at least for myself, have kind of standards for living. And most of the housing in Menominee does not meet that. And where I'm at, I'm very comfortable with, and it's a great property. But again, I'm paying like half of my monthly paycheck or monthly income, which is not what it should be. Um, but was the only option I had when I was trying to find a place to live in Menominee when I moved here full time. So that's just the matter of the situation is that finding and providing affordable income or affordable housing that is clean is like kept to a standard that isn't like most college homes. It's very important that we have that because there's a lot of us that are just struggling to even believe that we'll even have the opportunity to own a home. In fact, I think it's fair to say that most of my generation fully believes that we'll never be able to own a home. So
I normally don't step in and say anything on these meetings, but Spencer, I'm in your generation and I agree. So Tammy, it's interesting to hear what you've said. I appreciate the information you've given. I guess when you said like our generation doesn't want to own a home, I guess I'm kind of wondering where that information came and did that study ask, do you not want to own or do you think you'll ever be able to financially afford to own? Because I know for like my friends, every single one of them has said that they want to own, but they truthfully do not believe it is in their budget to ever own in their lifetime. So their cop out answer is I don't ever want to own because I know it will be more than 30% of my monthly income.
I think also to expand on that is another uh, thing of just available housing stock. There's a specific property owner in Menominee that has bought a lot of property, and most of them are either uh, could be single family homes or are split up into duplexes and quadplexes and stuff like that, but are rental housing that could have been provided as a property to have, except they just went and bought it out and now are overcharging rent for the quality of housing that it's providing. So that's another big issue that we're having is just people are buying properties. I know that's a thing that has been a real big issue back in my hometown in Door County, that there's people coming up from wherever else and are buying up all of these properties that are going for sale. And then they're turning that house into an Airbnb and then subdividing that land and building Airbnbs that none of it can be used for the uh, underhoused working population that Door County requires every summer. So that's really kind of the reality that we live in, and it's hard to try to convince ourselves that it won't be like that in the future because I mean it's hard to tell with the current state of the economy if we'll even be able to afford next month. So no matter how much we're working to get paid to do that, like a lot of us are working very hard with not a lot of support.
Thanks for that, Spencer. I just would like to just say, but back when I was your age, it was really hard you should see some of the scum holes I lived in when I first, I mean, they were bad. No hot water, just cold showers, and it was ridiculously bad. That's all I could afford. And I'm sure I had thoughts of, I'm never going to dig my way out of this hole. But as time went on, I got better jobs and more income and I worked two jobs, I even got two jobs because I wanted to better myself. I'm sure you're the same, Spencer. All the young people, they want to better themselves. They want to do stuff, and you're going to. You're gonna get a higher paying job, and all of a sudden in life, you'll make that hump and you'll get there. You'll get over that hump. It was no different for me when I was your age, Spencer. I had the same thoughts you thought. I thought, oh, I'll never own what my dad and mom did or stuff like that. So, but eventually it did get better, you know, and I just want to encourage you, don't give up, just keep working. You'll do it.
I can promise you, we're not giving up. It's
Yeah.
realistically what is going to happen. And
Okay.
I'm already working more.
Let's get moving on with
Yeah.
our meeting here, so.
Yep.
I guess I would then like to segue into making a motion to what would it be? Approve the
To
request
approve the request
for
for
51,000
yeah.
for the Dunn County Housing Authority.
And I'll second that. It's just a $3,000 increase, wasn't it, from last year?
49 to 51.
Yeah.
2,000.
2,000.
So I'll second the motion then.
Okay, any further discussion? I know we're voting on, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous, excuse me. Okay. Dunn County Economic Development Corporation. And I don't have their dollar amount on there either, I don't think.
All right, good evening again. So this year for DCEDC, we are requesting $60,000 for fiscal year 2026. This is an increase of $5,000 from previous years. The increase is to match one-to-one with the City of Menominee's contribution, who increased their contribution last year to $60,000, and is further leveraged again by the partnership with UW Stout, who provides in-kind contributions for my benefits package, technology, and office space. So I am the only full-time economic development staffer for the county, serving both the City of Menominee and Dunn County by way of all of the 7 villages and 22 townships. The funding for economic development supports proactive business attraction. As I was mentioning, kind of some of the trends that we're seeing with requests for information not necessarily coming in as frequently as we've seen them in the past. We're needing to take a little bit more of a proactive approach to make sure that we are attracting the businesses and industries that will make our community vibrant and add to the aesthetic of Dunn County. Also complementing our existing businesses instead of potentially creating unnecessary competition and forcing closures. We're also working on housing development and the Development Friendly Municipalities program to offer direct hands-on technical assistance to municipal staff that are often overextended, and also working on limited budgets and capacity. It also goes to professional development for my position. So I am currently working through a certification through the International Economic Development Council to make sure that I am abiding by best practices and have a professional certification that puts us at an advantage in comparison to some of the other counties in the region. And then also fostering countywide collaboration, making sure that we are providing resources to elected officials and municipal staff to help them understand the economic development process, and really make sure that we're all moving forward together and kind of speaking the same language when it comes to economic development. Speaking kind of to the increase in the funding request, it is to match the city one-to-one. For that, my concern would be that if the county were to kind of lag behind the city in funding, that we would risk some of my capacity being reallocated into city initiatives as opposed to being dispersed across the county. I love the City of Menominee, but I'm very passionate about our rural communities. I really want to make sure that we're helping our 7 villages and 22 townships just as much as our economic engine with the City of Menominee. I think that's our low-hanging fruit, and I think that I'm adding a lot of benefit to them, but I think that our villages, that benefit is a little bit more tangible. We also have 2 ways to make up a deficit. We can increase our prices on our services, which for a county isn't really an option of something that we can do, or we can sell more product. And not that I want to commodify Dunn County and make it something that we sell, but positioning ourselves for net new construction to allow the county to increase its levy and continue providing good services is really the mechanism that the state has given counties and other municipalities to support their budgets. Finally, most of what I have done in this position is really trying to future-proof this position so that if I were to win the lottery tomorrow, that we have a position that somebody can walk into that's competitive in the landscape of economic development professionals, and so that we can find somebody that can fulfill the duties of this position without it having to be tied to a single individual. And so I really do want to kind of take myself out of the equation and really talk about the Director of Economic Development as being a position that we need to make sure is competitive into perpetuity. So with that, are there any questions at all?
Anybody? Oh, Tim?
It just, the $5,000 increase, then that would just specifically go to your, basically to your benefit for office space and different things that you do within the realm of your job description.
So it wouldn't go directly to me. It would go, my oversight committee, which includes Dan Dunbar, county manager, Eric Atkinson, city administrator, Catherine Frank, the chancellor, the chairs of the DCEDC, which is Steve Girth right now, and chair of the GMDC, Dan Lytle, as well as a representative from the Stout Tech Park, being Tim Bartels, the community engagement manager for Xcel Energy. Those 6 help me determine my budget for the year. Part of that is my salary. And one of the conversations recently has been, what if I were to receive an offer from another company or another firm, being able to counteract that. So that would be kind of the mechanism where if this would be reallocated to salary, they do want the flexibility to be able to counter a different offer within reason. The memorandum of agreement between the 6 entities does cover the legislatively approved raises for UW Stout and UW system staff. Last year, we received a 3% raise. This July, we received a 2% raise. So that does eat into the bottom line of these contributions from the city and the county, but ultimately any additional contribution is being allocated into the other budgeted areas for economic development benefit rather than going directly to me for salary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Do we have any requests on the budget, up, down?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the funding request as presented.
60,000? We got a first and second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that being all the COVID funds are gone now and they're not being added into the budget, and we're without all that stuff now, somewhere along the line, our county has got to start taking a look at some things, just saying no to. We're going to have to, or we're not going to make budget. How are we coming on our budget, Andrew? You would have an idea. I had a guy ask me last night. He's very concerned about the budget for Dunn County because he knows that sooner or later we're going to end up having to raise the tax levy, and so they all know they're going to be paying more taxes. So they're asking me out in District 1. They're asking me, Bob.
And the same as with the highway, they're gonna up the levy because they gotta pay
Exactly.
for the highway building, and everything's gonna jump, so.
Exactly. So, and that's all I'm saying is that somewhere along the line, we've got to start getting the mentality that it's not a personal thing. It's just something that we have to do to make those tough decisions, to say no to certain things. Once in a while, we just got to cut back on the spending. It's either that or increase the levies. You got to make a choice on it.
I think the biggest issue right now is that we can't increase the levy. We're already at our levy limit, and the only way to raise that so that we can support all this stuff is by economic development, and would allow us to support the mechanisms that actually allow us to fund the county.
Or borrow more money all the time, which to balance
We
the
can't
budget.
borrow for operational expenses, which I think is one of the bigger areas where we need.
So anyway,
And-
I
and
just
again-
wanted to bring that up
yeah.
for discussion or whatever, and just encourage us all to think about, cutting back some on our spending is what we need to do. And I understand everybody wants more. Every year they come and ask for more all the time.
Because their cost goes up as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree with you 100%, but like you said, economic development is pretty big for the county. And we're gonna move it forward. It might hit the executive committee and they'll start cutting somewhere. They gotta cut, and then they'll go for a full board for
Sure.
cutting too, so.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to throw that out there.
And if I could just offer to, this is the first increase that I'm aware of that we've asked for with the DCEDC. I'm not sure when the last time that we've asked for an increase was. So I could do a little bit of research on that and just get back to you on that. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor in a second. That's all in favor? Opposed? Second passes. Resolutions, reports, ordinances, and county board to the community resources, nothing, they got none of those, so. Any announcements? Next meeting is Tuesday, August 7th, right here in this room.
That's also partisan primary election day, just as your county clerk. Put that plug in.
Meeting adjourned.